just announced martial law in Korea. The parliament has been closed. The army is now blocking entrance into parliament. This is the first declaration of martial law since the Sixth Republic's emergence in 1988. The first in 43 years since the military dictatorship of Chun Doo-hwan announced martial law after their coup. I listened to the whole announcement by Yoon, and here's a summary. So Yoon's reasoning is that the current parliament has continuously impeached various people from his government, the latest of which is their attempt to impeach the defense minister. That this has paralyzed the administration, and that the current parliament is also blocking various budgets, including military and police budgets, when he is trying to make a safer and a more secure society. He is saying that the parliament is holding the country's budget hostage for political pressure on Yoon. And he says that this is an act of subversion by the parliament, that they need to root out the 반국가 종북 세력, the anti-government and pro-North Korean elements from the parliament who are trying to demolish the country. So there's that usual conservative line of trying to legitimize anything through connecting it to North Korea and anti-communist sentiments. So essentially, he's calling for martial law because the parliament is against him and his party. Now, a lot of this comes from the way the Korean parliament has been since 2020. So 더불어민주당, the New Politics Alliance for Democracy, has held more than 50% of the seats in the parliament since 2020. And this was while Moon Jae-in, whose party is also the New Politics Alliance, was president. But then Yoon got elected in 2022. So his party is 국민의힘, the People Power Party. So what happened was that since 2022, the ruling party under the presidency became 국민의힘, but then the opposition held majority in parliament. Then, through the 2024 parliamentary election, the opposition continued to hold more seats with 170 seats out of 300. And what I'm suspecting is that they're using this martial law declaration to pressure the opposition and also possibly prosecute members of the opposition. Which is why I think this whole thing is unfounded. He's essentially saying that he doesn't agree with what the elected officials are doing, so he's going to declare martial law to root out elected officials? Now here's the thing, under the Korean constitution, if the majority of members of parliament demand that the president draw back martial law, the president must accept. And currently, not only the opposition, which has a majority anyway, is rejecting this, his own party is also looking at this negatively. So if and when the parliament demands that martial law be rolled back, will President Yoon accept? Because if he doesn't accept, that's when things will get ugly. And that's when I predict that Koreans will come out to the streets again. They've done it before, they've done it to even worse presidents, and they'll do it again.
So the South Korean president, Yoon Suk-yeol, just effed around and found out really quick. I'm sure everyone has heard by now that the South Korean president, with a 17% approval rating and the entire country calling for his impeachment, decided to declare martial law across South Korea, effectively putting the military in control of the country and essentially instituting a dictatorship under the guise of North Korean threats. But the South Koreans were not having it. In less than 3 hours, over 1,000 citizens, members of the opposing party, and actual members of his party revolted outside of the National Assembly building. 190 members of parliament were able to fight off the South Korean military to enter and cast a vote to overturn the martial law declaration. And all 190 members unanimously voted to do just that. And now the South Korean president has just recanted his words and withdrew his martial law declaration. Absolutely insane. But my question is, do you think that it would go down the same way here in the United States? Are our political leaders ready to fight if Trump declares martial law and tries to implement his dictatorship? Because I honestly don't see it playing out the same way. For one, South Korea's military is not an all-volunteer force the way that our military is. They are forced to serve. And two, the Korean culture is drastically different than the American culture. Koreans are raised to have reverence for their elders. My mother is Korean, and she would scold me if I ever disrespected my older brother. I also lived in South Korea for a year, and I witnessed firsthand how even amongst friend groups, age is respected. And that doesn't just change once they put on a uniform. In my opinion, that is largely the reason why there were no shots fired and nobody was hurt during this revolt. I honestly don't see the South Korean military opening fire on their own people. I mean, I could be wrong, but I honestly don't think that I am. But as sad as I am to admit, as a retired 22-year veteran, I cannot say the same about our military. And I also don't think that our Democratic Party would be heroic enough to fight off the military to convene and vote. But I am convinced that this stunt that the South Korean president pulled is a sign of the times that we are currently in. The world is changing, and the illusion of democracy is coming to an end. But unfortunately, I'm afraid that we would never be able to stop fighting amongst ourselves for long enough to ever be willing to unite and fight against tyranny the way that South Korea just did.
Welcome to another episode of Seen and Heard podcast, where everyone should be seen and heard. And I'm going to throw this question out to the listeners and those that are viewing. What do you think? How do you think a situation like South Korea would go down here in the United States? Which, honestly, in my opinion, if we didn't do anything by January 7th, I just really feel bad and ashamed that the Americans will basically roll over and allow dictatorship, authoritarianism, and fascism to take hold in the country. I mean, a lot of people talk big, but as far as action, there are people that are not even disciplined enough to stop buying a Starbucks or canceling their Amazon Prime or stop using Amazon, so there's always excuses from the American people. But yeah, I want to throw that question out though. Let your voice be heard. I also want to play this clip, and excuse me again tonight. I'm not feeling very well. I've been still not feeling very well. The weather change and all. But I would like to also give a shout out to the South Korean people for standing on business. You guys understood the assignment, and I'm in awe of you all. And it was just I was just in awe watching the drama take place all day yesterday. So you guys get your props. And I want to flip this around for you to see this article here. This is 6 hours under martial law and why it was declared and failed. So I'm going to play this and we'll talk on the other side.
6 hours under martial law, why it was declared and failed. This article is by Lim Jong-won and read by an artificial voice. Questions abound after President Yoon Suk-yeol's surprise declaration of emergency martial law Tuesday night. Why did he do it, and what comes next? Yoon declared emergency martial law a bit before 10:30 p.m., which was lifted only 6 hours later after the National Assembly unanimously passed a resolution to lift it. This was the first time in 45 years and the 17th time in Korea's whole history that a state of martial law was declared. The fact that even members of Yoon's own People Power Party, PPP, did not receive a notification about the declaration is demonstrative of the historical implications of such a declaration and is a concerning indication of the president's reluctance to adhere to democratic norms and institutions, experts say. The late-night declaration of martial law is an extreme move that undermines democratic institutions, said Celeste Arrington, a Korea Foundation associate professor of political science at George Washington University. It shows how frustrated Yoon has grown with the National Assembly, which the opposition party has controlled for his entire time in office. Yoon took office in May 2022, but has effectively been a lame duck since the opposition Democratic Party, DP, won a landslide victory in the general elections in April this year. Since then, the Yoon administration has failed to pass the bills it wants, and is instead stuck vetoing bills passed by the DP. The president's approval rating has also been continuously declining, dipping below 20%, and he has faced criticism over several corruption scandal allegations, including ones involving First Lady Kim Kun-hee and stock manipulation. Such recent tensions within the Korean political scene may have been a key factor in Yoon's sudden move, Arrington said. Legislators have been at loggerheads with the president over the government's budget and the opposition party's repeated efforts to impeach key government figures, observed Arrington. But the declaration of martial law reveals a lack of forbearance and mutual tolerance that are critical for a functioning democracy. Martial law can be declared by the president under the Korean constitution, but the legality rests on whether the state of the nation meets certain conditions outlined by Article 77. Martial law can only be declared under certain conditions, which are not present in Korea today, Arrington pointed out. The declaration of martial law seems to violate the Constitution because it is not a situation wherein it is necessary to respond to military needs or maintain public order in wartime, an incident or similar emergency. Yoon may have also violated the Martial Law Act, depending on whether he deliberated with ministers in advance, Arrington added. And sending the military into the National Assembly repeats past authoritarian leaders' illiberal tactics. Calls for the impeachment of Yoon are already echoing throughout the political sphere, according to multiple reports. The unaligned PPP is currently forming a consensus on the president's expulsion from the party and Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun's replacement, according to multiple party members present at the PPP senior meeting held Wednesday morning. The swift lifting of the emergency martial law, which lasted only 6 hours, also shows that Yoon was unprepared for the variables involved. Lawmakers gathered within the hour at the National Assembly building in Yeouido, Western Seoul, after Yoon declared emergency martial law, while the military mobilization at the scene was lackluster in carrying out orders and experiencing difficulty in gaining control of the situation within the parliament building as well as outside, with a swarm of more than 200 citizen protesters quickly gathering in Yeouido in the night. While many are worrying about the state of democracy in Korea after the events that unfolded between Tuesday and Wednesday, some experts see a positive angle. A decision that the majority of the Korean people could not accept or imagine was made by the president, but the situation also showed the resilience of Korean democracy, said Kang Won-taek, professor of political science at Seoul National University. The president's reckless decision was rejected immediately by the National Assembly and such a constitutional procedure was ultimately accepted. Yesterday's events show that methods such as a coup d'état or martial law using the military are not possible anymore in Korea. However, Kang warned of increased political uncertainty, including Yoon's position, that could pose a burden on Korea in the coming weeks.
So, I like to say shout out to the South Korean people. They were also up, and from what I've caught from updates today, they are planning on doing a nationwide strike, like a general strike, until Yoon resigns, and he will be prosecuted. Unlike in our country, we let our authoritarian, fascist, I'm not even going to use the P word, Trump, uh, get back into office, which does not make sense. And the fact that the politicians themselves, they were scaling walls, there were videos of them scaling the wall to get into parliament to vote so that they could vote down his declaration of martial law. So they all work together, the politicians, even some of the politicians on in his own party. So that was just amazing to witness yesterday, how they shut that down within under 7 hours. It was like, what, 6 hours? And we will follow up with more information as the updates come in. I will keep you posted, keep you updated. And if you like our programming, this is the end of the year fundraising for the podcast. And if you would like to show your support, that there will be links in the description box as usual. Leave us a voicemail. Let us know what you think. Comment. And I'll also link that article that we just heard by AI, which I apologize for not listening to it because I read the article earlier and I just hit that button because I didn't know it was going to be AI. So I apologize for that. I'm not going to be in the habit of playing anything that's AI generated. But if you like the program in general overall, please let me know. And we appreciate you. And we will see you on the next show. Bye bye.